Hi, I'm Teekosey and you're watching another round of With Just 15 Defeats, the heavyweight boxing show from the UK. Now in today's show I'm going to be discussing the upcoming IBF World Heavyweight Championship fight between champion Charles Martin and contender Anthony Joshua. Now if you've been watching any of my videos previously, you'll know that I have already previously discussed this fight briefly. I put out a video discussing the matchup when the fight was announced, but we spent most of the video really discussing the merits of the fight. Now, it's pretty simple. This fight shouldn't be being made. Neither deserve to be in a world title fight. Charles Martin does not deserve to be a champion. So if we just gloss over that and we just accept that this is the position we're in, this is the boxing game, this is the politics of boxing, and we just accept that these two guys are in this position, they're going to be making big money, and it's going to be live on pay-per-view around the world. Just move on and let's discuss the fight. Now, talking about the actual fight, now here in the UK, Anthony Joshua is becoming one of the most recognised sportsmen in the country. I wouldn't say he's there yet. He's an Olympic gold medalist. The whole Hearn machine is building Anthony Joshua to be at that level, but because of the way that boxing is screened here in the UK on paid channels, the general man on the street doesn't follow boxing in the way that possibly it does around the world. Just as simple as that. So Anthony Joshua is known as being the Olympic gold medalist. He received a lot of airtime, TV time, just because of his looks and the fact that it's heavyweight boxing. But as his career's progressed, obviously they've been pushing him. He has sponsors with clothing companies and all that good stuff that you'd expect from someone who's becoming a star. But the fact that he's in this heavyweight showdown, I don't think there's been a massive amount of coverage. Now we're just a couple of weeks away from the big fight, and as I say, there hasn't been a great deal of coverage, not in the way that there was when Fury was going for the title shot. I think it's because Fury was in that position. He deserved to be in it. And I think a lot of the general fans are thinking, yeah, okay, Joshua's in this fight. He's probably going to win it. So are we that bothered? We're just not that bothered about the achievement that can be made. Isn't seen to be a great one, and that's the pity of it. But let's focus on Charles Martin. Let's have just a brief discussion about what Charles Martin brings to the table. So far, he's undefeated. He's got 23 wins and 1 draw. 21 of his wins are by KO. And let's just briefly look down. The last time it went to a decision was 2013, which isn't that far back, but he's only been a pro since 2012. So I think Joshua became a pro in 2013, so there isn't really much in it. They both have about as much pro experience as each other, and Charles Martin has been on a streak of knocking guys out. The only unfortunate thing is that he hasn't fought anyone. He's literally fought no one of any note. And for Charles Martin's career, even going forward after this fight, the fact that he has this limited experience, it doesn't put him in good stead. It doesn't give him the grounding to be a top fighter. You need to be fighting top guys to show that you have that talent. If you're knocking over just nobody's, it literally doesn't mean you don't grow from it. You don't grow from you just don't grow from pushing someone over in 5 seconds every week. you need those hard 12 rounds, and this guy does not have the rounds. He just does not have the rounds. In 24 bouts, he's got 74 rounds. So what's that? It's an average of 3 a fight, which just shows you he lacks the experience. We don't know if he's got the chin. We don't know whether he can keep going. Can he come back from adversity? We just don't know. So I just thought, let's just go quickly, have a brief discussion on his last 5 fights. Now, his 5 fights ago takes you back to the beginning of 2015. So not that long ago. Not that long ago. So he had 4 fights in 2015, and the first one was against Damon McCreary. He was 15-3 at the time. Now, McCreary, he is just a porky little fella. He's only about 5'10", and he's got a bit of a tummy. So that is an absolutely nothing matchup. Then we moved on to Rafael Zambano Love. Again, he's already had 9 defeats in his career. That was a stoppage in the final round. So this is actually one of the few fights that Martin was taken into deep water. But to be perfectly honest, he looked as fresh as a daisy in the last round. He'd been taking it relatively easy, and he just managed to just push Love over the line, really. Then the third fight was against Tom Dallas, British guy, an absolutely nothing opponent. This was a round 1 knockout classic. Now, Tom Dallas was sparked out a couple of years ago by David Price, so you can take what you want from that comment. He then moved across to Vicente Sandez. I believe he's a Mexican dude. Knocked him out in 3 rounds. Again, another opponent with absolutely no experience whatsoever. Has been taking easy fights against guys with that don't even have wins up until a couple of years ago, and has fouled every time he came out of his comfort zone. So an absolutely nothing fight. I wouldn't even see the point of taking that fight, to be perfectly honest. And then we move on to the Glashkov Championship fight for Tyson Fury's vacated belt, which was a disgrace. But that actual fight, that never went the distance. It was stopped after a couple of rounds because of an injury. But I predicted that Martin would win that fight comfortably. Anyway, if you watch my prediction video prior to that fight, and so then that's 5 fights. That's his last 5 fights, and there's nothing there. There's nothing he can take from those 5 fights that he's going to say, look, I'm now going into a world title defence, and I know because of previous fights where I've given it my all, I'm optimistic. There's nothing. There's literally nothing, and that's the whole disgrace that this is a world title fight. But anyway, let's move forward. Charles Martin, what does he offer? Is he a game opponent? Yes, I think Charles Martin is a game opponent. Personally, he's not in the top 10. I don't believe that he's a top 10 fighter, but he's at the moment he's a game fighter. Now, if he gets sparked out by Anthony Joshua, he could quickly become a journeyman within the next 18 months. He could have had another couple of defeats against other contenders and fall away. It's as simple as that. We've seen it over and over and over again. It happens when they lose that magical O. They lose something extra. If they don't have it within them to the spirit and the desire. Now, we don't know that about Prince Charles Martin, but what do we know about him? He's quite a big guy. He's not ripped and shredded, but he's big. He's upright. He has a style where he has his head upright and almost leans slightly back, and then just pistons out of that jab. He pistons out of that jab, and he likes to kind of throw nothing arm shots a lot until he is able to throw the big bomb, and that's what he's looking for. He's looking to throw big bombs off the back of nothing punches. So he'll just throw out that jab, throw out that jab, throw out the jab, trying to keep the distance. And if he is in close, he'll throw silly little punches to keep busy, which is good in a way. But he's always looking to throw that big overhand shot to try and stop an opponent. So there is an interesting element to this fight in terms of him being a game opponent, and the fact is that he could knock out Anthony Joshua. There's no two ways about it. He probably has the tools to do it. So, Prince Charles Martin versus Anthony Joshua. Let's compare the two. Now, they're both big guys. Prince Charles is 29 years old. He is 6'5" and has an 80-inch reach. So if we just compare that to Anthony Joshua is 6'6", 82. So Anthony Joshua is slightly bigger. How will that affect Charles Martin? That's always the way. We saw it in the Klitschko-Tyson Fury fight. For the first time, Klitschko fought a guy who was bigger than him. The fact that it was only marginally bigger means nothing. The fact that he was bigger, so the way that he fights, the way that he attacks, had to completely change. And Klitschko struggled. For me, that's the biggest difference in that fight. It was the game changer. It was the size. Now, will this be the same for Martin? Most of his opponents have been small. Like I just said, only a couple of fights ago, he was fighting Damon McCreary, who was 5'11", if we're being generous. So that's a bit of a joke. Now, he has fought someone as big as him. I actually can't. You think all these bums on his record, but there is one guy that he fought. I can't quite remember who it was, but I think it might have been a first round stoppage bout. Honestly, I can't remember what one it was, but so he's fought someone that's bigger than him, but he managed to get a good shot straight away, and the fight was ended. A bit like Anthony Joshua. Well, he's fought a couple of guys of a similar stature to him, like the Scottish guy, Gary Cornish, but again, he sparked him out so quickly, you can't really tell how that fight would have played out if there'd been any merit in it going forward. So that's going to be an interesting factor, which I think is probably going to play against Charles Martin. I don't think it's going to be so much of an issue for Anthony Joshua. So how do I think that the fight is going to play out? Straight away, I'm going to say Anthony Joshua wins this fight. Charles Martin could win the fight, but I think Anthony Joshua wins the fight. It's going to be interesting to see how Joshua fights in this matchup. Now, as I said, Charles Martin, he's going to have that leaning back sort of stance, and he's going to be moving about, and probably on the back foot. I would have thought he'd be on the back foot, but then most of Joshua's opponents have been on the back foot, and he has just been hunting them down and trying to take them out. So I don't think that kind of way of the fight is going to change. I think it's going to be exactly the same sort of setup, and it all depends on whether Charles Martin can keep the distance. He may well do. It may be that this is the fight where he steps up to the big leagues and he shows that he's got it, that he has all the skills. He just has not been fighting the caliber opponent to be able to show it, and this is the one. So we just have to wait and see on that. But I just think that if Joshua can land the bombs, and I think he will be able to land the bombs, he's going to win the fight. And I hope for Anthony Joshua and the run that he's going on, that he spent time on footwork, head movement. if he comes in and has the same sort of head movement generally that he showed against White, Martin could pick him off. It's quite possible that he could pick him off and land big shots. But I'm going to stick my neck out and say Anthony Joshua wins the fight by stoppage. Now this is definitely, the fight will definitely not go to full 12. As already said, Charles Martin has only gone the distance twice, and that was a 10-rounder and a, let's just quickly check, and a 6-rounder. He's got two 6-rounders and one. Oh yeah, he's gone the distance twice in 6-rounders, and he managed to stop our man Zambano Love in the 10th. So he's gone the distance effectively 3 times. We know Anthony Joshua's on a murderous run of knocking out every single opponent. So he's got a really limited amount of rounds. As we said, Martin's got 74 in 24 fights, and Anthony Joshua 32 rounds. 32 rounds in his 15 fights. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. But that's where we are. Let's just check the latest odds for this matchup. Anthony Joshua, Charles Martin. Just checking out Paddy Power, who I bet with. They've got the odds at 1-6. Joshua, Martin 4-1. So it's quite a hefty swing. They can't see Martin winning it. Let's see what they think. What's the most likely? They're the best odds are 5-1. Joshua to win in rounds 2, 3, or 4. They think it's unlikely that it's going to go the distance. Martin to win, his best odds are in rounds 2 and 3, 33-1. 33-1. So, method of victory. Anthony Joshua by KO is 2-9. 2-9. Martin by KO is 11-2, so it's a massive swing. Will it go the distance? You can get 5-1. Yes. 1-9. No. Because it definitely won't go the distance. It's as simple as that. So it's going to be an interesting fight. When it was first announced, I thought this is straight up bullshit. This is a straight up bullshit fight. I don't want to see it. But the more that I've thought about it, and the fact that I've rewatched a couple of Charles Martin's fights, even though they're against pathetic opponents, I think there's potential for an interesting fight. The styles, I think, will mesh quite well, and the fact that both of them have such a limited experience means that we just don't know. It's a fight that we don't know really how it will go, but we can all make the prediction, and I'm sure that 98% of people out there who follow boxing will be saying Anthony Joshua wins this by stoppage within 5 rounds. And we'll just have to wait and see where this takes Anthony Joshua, because they're building him up to be like the next Tyson, the next Tyson. But some people are saying he's good, but he might be more of the next Bruno. But let's be honest, he might end up being the next Lewis. All we want is that he doesn't become the next Audley. But there we go. That's the prediction for the Charles Martin Anthony Joshua matchup coming in just a few short weeks. 9th of April 2016. And thanks for watching the video.